Boy, oh boy, do we have stuff to talk about. I know many of you have been anxiously awaiting my comments on this matter. And much to the chagrin of probably everybody involved in this whole thing, I'm going to do the only thing I really know how to do, which is to be 100% honest with everybody involved and give my take and lay it all out there. So I'm sure most of you have heard about all this already, but nonetheless, here we go rehashing it. So a few days ago, this story comes out. Young Turks founder Cenk Uygur apologized for ugly, insensitive old blog posts. Exclusive. Liberal host once wrote that women are genetically flawed because they don't want to have sex often enough. So what's going to happen is I'm going to go through this. I'll try to get through as much of it as possible without commenting, and then, I'll come back and give everybody my take. So in other words, I don't really want to go point for point here. I want to get it all out of the way, and then we'll discuss it. So they say Young Turks creator and host Cenk Uygur made multiple graphic and disparaging remarks about women in his early days as a blogger, including saying that women were genetically flawed because they don't want to have sex often enough. The Wrap found the blog posts from the early 2000s in online archives. In an interview with The Wrap, Uygur apologized and said he deleted the ugly posts a decade ago because, quote, I don't stand by them. The stuff I wrote back then was really insensitive and ignorant, Uygur said. If you read that today, what I wrote 18 years ago, and you're offended by it, you're 100% right, and anyone who is subjected to that material, I apologize to. And I deeply regret having written that stuff when I was a different guy. Uygur said he wrote the posts while he was still a conservative before he underwent a political transformation into a liberal. His news organization, The Young Turks, now offers left-leaning stories and commentary. Quote, if someone said that today, I would heavily criticize them on the show, and rightfully so. And I have. I've criticized myself over the years, he added. I had not yet matured, and I was still a conservative who thought that stuff was politically incorrect and edgy. When you read it now, it looks really, honestly, ugly, and it's very uncomfortable to read. In an entry from 2000, Uygur complained about not having enough sex while living in Miami. Quote, it seems like there is a sea of tits here, and I am drinking in tiny droplets. I want to dive into the whole goddamn ocean, he wrote. Obviously, the genes of women are flawed. They are poorly designed creatures who do not want to have sex nearly as often as needed for the human race to get along peaceably and fruitfully. In another entry, Rules of Dating, Uygur described how fast physical intimacy should progress. Women, ignore these at your peril, he wrote. Rule 1, there must be some serious making out by the third date. If you haven't felt your tits by then, if I haven't felt your tits by then, things are not about to last much longer. In fact, if you don't get back on track by the fourth date, you're done. He added, Rule 2, there must be an orgasm by the fifth date. In a post archived in 2003, he wrote about carousing with numerous women in New Orleans while drunk. I had one of the best nights of my life at Mardi Gras. I kissed over 23 different women, saw and felt countless breasts, and was in a wonderful drunken stupor thanks to my friend John Daniels, read the post. John Daniels is sometimes used as a nickname for Jack Daniels whiskey. Uygur told The Wrap that all of the behavior he described had been consensual. The posts were written during the earliest years of Uygur's career as a journalist on YoungTurk.com, which today redirects to a website for the Young Turks. So, I hate to do this, but we're going to do it. Let's go to Cenk's original blog on this, titled Semi-Pros in Miami. And, look, we're going to go through it. Like I said, some of this stuff is very uncomfortable to do, but my job is always to be 100% honest with you, give you all the facts, and then give you my take on it, and discuss, of course, the fallout with Justice Democrats. So, he said, I live in Miami now. There are an incredible amount of outrageously hot women here. In fact, there are more beautiful women here than any other city I have ever seen. The only problem is that after seeing these girls every day and not being able to have sex with them, after a while you begin to lose your mind. Don't get me wrong, I hook up a decent amount, defined as at least make out with a new girl every 6 to 8 weeks, and have sex with a steady girl at least once a week. But it seems there is a sea of tits here and I'm drinking in tiny droplets. I want to dive into the whole goddamn ocean. The waves keep pounding you every night on South Beach, and the more luscious the surf and the more dry you are, the more insanity sets in. On Friday night, I talked to approximately 11 different women at a new club on the beach. Most of them were unfairly beautiful, and I must admit I was fairly charming. Some even indicated I was cute, but alas, no results. The madness grows. There are 2 problems, which I will get into greater detail on later, but for now, suffice to say, there are 1, too many semi-professional whores in Miami, 2, the genes that God gave women. 1, in other places in the U.S., when I tell girls that I quit law to become a talk show host, they get excited because it indicates I might actually be an interesting person that has done something unusual and hence cool thing with his life. In Miami, it is seen as a clear decrease in earning potential and is heavily frowned upon. I have never seen girls get so turned off as when I tell a Miami girl I no longer practice law. This reaction is sickening in its depraved, whorish blatantness. This happened again on Friday night when I told what seemed to a sweet what seemed to be a sweet 5th grade teacher my story. She lost all interest, quickly lost her sweet smile, and literally switched seats so as not to sit next to the man that threw away such good future earning potential. Number 2, obviously, the genes of women are flawed. They are poorly designed creatures who do not want to have sex nearly as often as needed for the human race to get along peaceably and fruitfully. So, the first time I read that, I have to admit, I'm a little, I don't know what the right word is. I'm a little on the spectrum, if you will, and I'm a very literal-minded person. So when I read through this the first time, I thought, okay, well, I don't know, that's like the textbook definition of sexism, to say the genes of women are flawed, they're poorly designed creatures. Now, I've spoken to a bunch of people about this, and I have to say that my reading of this has changed from the first time I read it. And given the total context, I think that's poking fun at himself. He's basically like whining about how he can't get laid, and then he's saying, well, I mean, look, obviously it's not my fault. It's the genes of women. They're flawed, and they don't want to have sex enough. So I think this is, and he described it at the time, I'm trying to be politically incorrect and edgy and stuff, but I don't think this is, a thesis of his. I don't think this is an actual belief of his, nor do I don't think it was a belief of his back when this was written in 1999. When I read it a second time, third time, fourth time, I thought, no, my own literal mindedness is getting in the way, and it's not a statement of fact. I think what he's doing is he's poking fun at himself for not being able to get laid. Now, some of you might say, well, Kyle, you're an idiot for not getting that originally. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe I am an idiot for not being able to, perceive the satirical nature of this originally. But I didn't perceive it originally, and then when I keep reading it over and over, now I do kind of see it, because, again, he's whining about how much he can't get laid. Now, this, to me, so this line was the operative thing that led to a tremendous backlash. Obviously, the genes of women are flawed. Now, in my mind, and some people might disagree with this, but I have to be totally honest with you guys. In my mind, everything else he said, the line about, it seems like there's a sea of tits here and I'm drinking in tiny droplets. There are some people who may be very, very outraged by that. In my mind, you remember how, I hate to make this comparison, but it's actually going to make sense, so I have to make this comparison. You remember when Trump got caught with grab him by the pussy, I don't even wait, and then they said afterwards, that's just locker room talk. Well, number one, I don't think that was locker room talk because Trump said, I grab him by the pussy, quote, I don't even wait. So the problem wasn't the grabbing him by the pussy. The problem was the I don't even wait because that implies no consent. But when I read what Cenk said here, a sea of tits, and I'm drinking in tiny droplets and I want to dive into the ocean, to me that is actual locker room talk. You know, that's how young men talk. And you might say that's crass, and you might be right. But I don't think that there's anything there that is unforgivable by any stretch of the imagination. There were other things that Cenk said that were also part of this controversy, and people use this to try to say, hey, recently he also is showing the same mindset that he showed back when he wrote these blogs in the late 1990s and early 2000s. And they point to these tweets. The improbable breasts in Miami are only matched by the improbable butts. This place makes LA look real. Hashtag Miami. This is from 2013. The next one. Just when I think Miami is all done, it pulls me back in. The women on the island are outrageously, almost unacceptably hot. Again, I think this is just standard, regular guy talk. Now, again, this line here, I think, is the operative line that people were very outraged by, and there was a backlash over. But upon me reading it a second, third, fourth time, I now do think it's kind of satirical, and I don't view it as an actual belief of his back then. Never mind today. There's zero chance he believes any of that today. So, in the wake of this article being published, Justice Democrats and Cenk Uygur have split ways here. Now, Cenk Uygur has said he's going to still continue to individually support all the candidates of Justice Democrats, but he's going to do it from the outside of the organization, not on the inside. And I can give everybody the mechanics of what happened. So, when people on the staff saw these things that he said, the overwhelming majority of them said, basically, look, it's him or us. So either he steps down as a face of the movement, because a face of the movement should have said these things about women under no circumstances. So it's either him or us. Either, he stays, in which case you need an entire new staff to do all the difficult infrastructure work. Or he goes as a public face of the movement, and the staff stays, and we continue doing all the infrastructure work and all the work necessary to move forward. Now, Cenk handled this in as mature a way as possible, because Cenk said, listen, this isn't about me, this was never about me, this is about the candidates, this is about the policies that they're fighting for. So he offered his resignation. He said, okay, given the reaction that this is causing in the staff, this isn't a hard decision. I will voluntarily resign, and you guys can keep fighting on, and I'll support you from outside the organization. The Justice Democrat statement that announced his resignation wasn't cordial. It was framed in a very venomous way, and in a way I don't agree with. They intimated that Cenk was sexist and racist, and they said Cenk is part of the patriarchy. I don't agree with that. They said that he abused his power like other officials, which implies that there's some sort of a parallel or a comparison between Cenk and guys like Representative Conyers or Cenk and Al Franken. I reject that implication, and I reject that comparison. I don't agree with that at all. In a retweet, they even implied that his words and actions, quote, perpetuate rape culture. I couldn't disagree with that any more strongly than I do. Even if you agree with the harshest interpretation of Cenk's comments, they were made 18 years ago, and for over a decade, he's come to be the polar opposite kind of person. In fact, Cenk has run his company and a newsroom for over a decade, and there have been a grand total of 0 complaints made against him. So, I am on the board of Justice Democrats, and I was faced with a decision among the other board members. I'm not the only person. I either override the overwhelming majority of the staff, in which case I'm undemocratic, or I don't try to override the overwhelming majority of the staff, in which case, on some level, I'm being spineless. I didn't have the power or the leadership authority to look at the overwhelming majority of the staff and say, I'm not going to take your concerns to heart, and I'm going to have Cenk stay on. Nor did Cenk say, listen, I don't care, I'm going to override the will of the overwhelming majority of the staff, and I'm going to stay on. So, for this reason, of strong differences, strong disagreements with the staff, I'm going to be stepping down from Justice Democrats. Now, I don't want people to take this the wrong way. I still, with all of my heart, believe that all of those members of the staff are vital and they're very important. And I respect each and every one of them. And the work that they put in must be fully appreciated, because it really was a lot of work, and it's really stuff that I don't have the skill set to do on my own. And they bring something very important to the left-wing movement. It's beyond crucial that each and every one of us still support the candidates, because the candidates had nothing to do with any of this. Every single one of the candidates has my support. They all still support Medicare for all and free college and a living wage and ending the wars and a New Deal and getting money out of politics. And they weren't even involved in this drama or the fallout or the very quick decision making. So I want everybody to know that I'm not just saying that. That even though I'm resigning from Justice Democrats, each and every candidate still deserves our support, still deserves our donations, still deserves our time to actually put in work at the grassroots level and to fight for them to get elected so that we can get our vision implemented. Basically, what this comes down to is an amicable split between the media wing of Justice Democrats and the remainder of the staff of Justice Democrats. And I want everybody to be respectful to all parties involved here and to understand that what's going on right now, this is nothing. It's drama that will come and go within a few days or a week or two. And then we all still have to fight for a better future for everybody. We all still have to win on the policy issues that matter. And I have full confidence that every single candidate will fight for those things. So that's pretty much everything I have to say on the matter. And I hope that all of you, even if you are upset about the departure of Cenk and myself from the organization of Justice Democrats, I hope all of you will do your best to dig down and not be petty or vindictive about this and to throw the baby out with the bathwater. I hope you will understand that it truly is It's my wishes and my will and Cenk's wishes and Cenk's will that despite the differences with the Organization of Justice Democrats and the staff of Justice Democrats, the candidates of Justice Democrats literally had nothing to do with any of this, and they're still fighting for all the right policies, and they all deserve our support.